Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today I have another pop-up card idea I want to share with you. And this one creates a large column right in the center of your card. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have a very simple pop-up card idea that I want to share with you. Now, I've shared a couple of pop-up card ideas, but this one has a very large column right in the center on the front of the card. And just like the other pop-up cards I've shared, this one folds down flat for mailing, but it also pops up beautifully for display. So it is a A2 size card. So basically we're going to be adhering this pop-up section to the front of an A2 size card. Now the card in this video features the Sunrise Sailing Bundle from Stampin Up. So this particular bundle is one of the new online exclusives, and it comes with a stamp set, a coordinating die set, and it also comes with a hybrid embossing folder. So this is what the image looks like, what the embossing folder does. And so the neat thing about the hybrid embossing folder is that you can actually cut and emboss at the same time. So you would just lay your die inside this folder and cut and emboss at the same time. However, today we're just going to use it for embossing. All right, so let's talk about how to make this card. Obviously, you are going to need a couple pieces of cardstock. You're going to need one for the base of the card, and then we're going to need one to create this little column. So let's get started. So you're going to start with 2 pieces of cardstock, which are both cut the same size. So they're 5.5 by 8.5 inches. So we're going to take one of the cardstock pieces, and we're just going to score it at 4.25 inches, and this will create the A2 size card base for this pop-up card. Next, we're going to take the other 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock, and we're going to do quite a bit of scoring across here. So you're going to put the 8.5 inch side towards the top, and we're going to start at the end here, and we are going to start with our first score line at 1/2 inch. And then you're going to go over to 1.25 inches, and then 2 inches, then 2.75 inches. It's a lot of score lines. Then we're going to go all the way over to 5.5 inches, and then we're going to go 6.25 inches. Then 7 inches, 7.75 inches. So after you make that last score line at 7.75, you're going to move this over to 8.25, and you're just going to cut off this last little bit. So this piece will end up being 8.25 by 5.5 inches. Okay, so now we are ready to create the column. So basically, we are just going to fold on all these score lines. So we'll just go through and crease them all. All right, so this is what it'll look like once you've completed all the scoring and all the creasing. And so basically what you have here is you have 1/2 inch on each side. So this between this score line and the end is 1/2 inch. And then each of these 3 sections are 3/4 inch wide. This middle section is 2.75 inches wide. And then of course we have the exact same thing on the opposite side. So you have 1/2 inch, 3 of them at 3/4 inch, 2.75 inch, 3 of them at 3/4 inch, and 1/2 inch. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to create these columns, but you'll notice that those 2 end pieces here are only 1/2 inch wide. So we're actually going to tuck these under. They're going to go underneath the 1/2 inch section. This 1/2 inch section is actually going to get adhered to the back of this piece so that you can create these 2 little columns. But notice how when I do that, they don't look straight, right? So we have a little solution for that. So in order to adhere these columns so that they're straight, because we only have that little 1/2" piece under there, so what we want to do is we want to line up these little 1/2" pieces so that they're pushing against this middle section. And we just want to fold these down flat. So see how I'm folding them down flat? And that's how we're going to do the adhering. All right, so with this 3/4 inch section on the left side sticking out, notice on the right side, all the pieces are tucked under here. We have our little 1/2" piece here, and we have our little 1/2" piece here. So we're gonna start by adhering this 1/2" piece. So we're gonna add some glue to this little 1/2" section. And then we're basically going to fold it so that only one of the 3/4 inch sections is showing on the front, and you have 2 on the back. So we're just gonna fold it down so that those 2 on the back are down. We'll just fold it flat and let the glue set up. And this will help make everything straight, because when the card folds flat, now you know that it's gonna fold flat for mailing. So not only does it help make everything straight, it also makes sure that this will fold flat for mailing. So now we're gonna add just a little glue here. And notice how I have a 1/2" and a 3/4 inch. And then on the outside here, I just have 2 3/4 inches, 2 3/4 inch sections. So we'll just fold this flat and we'll give this a chance to set up. All right, once the glue is set, you can let up on this and you can pop this up. And you'll notice that you'll have 2 columns on the back of this piece. And the front of your piece will look like this. It will just be 2 3/4 inches wide. So those little 1/2" pieces are adhered on the inside here. I don't know if you can see those, but we have 2 perfect columns now. Isn't that cool? So it's just a matter of folding these over and just applying glue on that little 1/2" section that's on each column. All right, so now we are ready to adhere this to our card front. So we want this to pop up directly in the center. So let me get this centered here. So we want this to pop up directly in the center, but again, we're going to have to fold this down. So we're gonna have to fold these pieces down. And this time I'll bring the 3/4 inch section off the right side, because this card will fold down either left or right, so it doesn't really matter, but we'll bring it off the right. So we have a little 3/4 inch section showing on this side. We have no 3/4 inch section showing on this side. And basically we're going to be adhering these 2 columns down to this card. So when it folds flat for mailing, it actually fits perfectly on the front of the card. So if it folds down this direction, which is the direction I'm going, it's gonna line up perfectly on the edge. If you fold it back the other direction, it's gonna line up perfectly on this edge. So we're just gonna use the left side, and basically we're going to add some glue to this column right here. So it's that second one. And we're gonna fold this flat and just line it up on our card front and push it down. And now again, we just have to give this a moment to set up. We need to let the glue set up. And then I'll show you what our pop-up looks like. All right, so we've given the glue a chance to dry. So now we can just let this pop back up. And we now have our center column. So you can see that it's aligned perfectly here. We have some square columns there in the center. And then we have this very large column in the middle of our card front that'll fold flat either direction. It'll fold flat to the right, it'll fold flat to the left, and of course it will pop up for display. All right, so now we are ready to decorate our card. So to decorate this card, I decided to use some of the Thoughtful Journey Designer Series paper. I thought it went really well with this particular stamp set, so that is what I'm using. And basically what I did is I cut it into 3 sections. So we're gonna decorate the center column and we're gonna decorate the side here. So these side pieces are 5/8 by 5.5 inches long. And then the center piece here is 2.5 inches by 5.5 inches long. So I cut all these pieces and then I just put them together in that embossing folder and then just sent it through the embossing machine so that the pattern would be consistent along the outer pieces and the middle piece. So that's really all I did. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this to the front panel of our card. And you can just see how beautiful the embossing is on here. It embossed the little sailboat, and then of course it added the water and some clouds. So it's really a beautiful embossing folder. So I'm just adding this to the front panel. So as you add different elements to this card, remember you can flatten it out so that you can add those elements. Don't try to add it while it's in its popped up position. And then we're just going to add these outer pieces just to kind of decorate the ends here. All right, and then let's push this way, and we'll add this other piece. All right, so that is what the front of our card looks like so far. So doesn't that look so pretty? I just love this designer paper with this particular stamp set. All right, so now it's just a matter of adding the different decorations and elements that you want to add. So I just stamped the sailboat image using Night of Navy. I just coordinated it with the cardstock. And then I added some dimensionals on the back, and I'm going to pop it up right over this embossed sailboat. So it's going to go right over that. So it gives you a really nice way to align everything too. Then I just stamped a little greeting on a 1/2 inch wide piece of white cardstock, and this is 2.5 inches long, so it's the same as the pattern paper that I have here. So I just popped that up, just used Night of Navy ink. And then I just added some additional elements. So I have a little cloud here that I'm just gonna tuck in. And we'll just kind of tuck that in the side and we'll leave that hang out. So then I die cut some little bird images, and I actually added some adhesive sheets to the back of this Night of Navy cardstock. So that way when I ran this die through the embossing machine, it would automatically add some adhesive to the back of these really tiny little die cut pieces. So all I have to do is peel off the backing here, and then I can go ahead and put these right on my card because it already has adhesive on it. So we'll do the same thing with this little bird. And we'll just put this up at the top. And that is what our card front looks like. Now, the interesting thing about this card is, like I said, it folds down flat for mailing, but you do have to pay attention to any of the shapes that you decide to allow hang off this column. You can certainly have shapes hang off, but when you go to mail it, it's going to fit into your envelope this direction. You'd have to push it down to the right so that this doesn't hang off the edge of the entire card. So do you see what I'm saying? This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches when it's closed, but the cloud sticks out a little too far for a regular A2 size envelope. So just fold it the other direction and it'll fit perfect into the envelope. And then the last thing I did for this card is I just decorated the inside. So I just used a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock and a 3/4 inch wide piece of that designer paper. I embossed that designer paper so it matches the outside and just added a little greeting. So it's really a very beautiful card, and it's so simple to create. So once you get the hang of how to create this center column, you might have to watch this video a couple times to do it, but once you get the hang of how to create it and how to fold this flat for mailing, it'll be very easy to adhere this column to the center of your card front. Okay, so there you go. Now you have a fun and simple way to create just a very unique style card. And if you enjoyed this card idea, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the card shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.